Howdy there. Today we're making some potato soup. So, this potato soup recipe stems from what my mother taught me when I was about 13. At the time, it was my favorite thing to eat, and it is still one of my favorites to this day. And it was one of the first things she taught me how to make for myself. Like one of her recipes that she passed down to me.
The club isn't the best place to stalk a lover, so the gym is where I go. That is where I spy on you when you box, I pretend I box also. I've got a weird obsession with the shape of your body, this creep.
Decisions to hide. Back up, I'll take you on.
So starting with the ingredients that I've got. So right here I've got 5 russet potatoes. My kind of like rule of thumb for how much to make is 2 potatoes per person. Right here I've got a Savoy cabbage. Today I've got some Italian sausage, just because it's what I had. It was bad. So right back here, I've got some the best bouillon. I've got cornstarch, obviously, to thicken it. And then seasoning wise, I've got garlic and paprika. Usually I would toss in onion powder as well, but I ran out the other day and I have not gotten more, so we're going without. I also do like to use whole onion, but I also just don't have any of those, and I'm not too worried about it. Herbs. For herbs, we've got oregano and parsley. And obviously, gotta have some salt and pepper. This is my salt pinch pot that I repurposed from an old TJ Maxx candle. I boiled the wax that was in it and took it out and cleaned it, and now it's my pinch pot, and I would do this with every single one of my spices if I had enough jars. This is my favorite thing to do. Repurpose your freaking candles. Never waste the jars. Never waste them.
Okay, so diving in now to the actual cooking process, I'm going to start with my prep work. So what I'm going for on these potatoes is a large dice, so I've halved them. Now I'm going to take them into thirds, and now about every centimeter to like half an inch, I'm going to place a cut because I want larger pieces so they don't overcook. Then I spread that out. So with the cabbage, I'm going to go ahead and peel off the like kind of dingy outer leaves. And the goal here is to get rid of the like harder white stem. So I'm cutting them into about 1/2 inch ribbons. And I'm gonna cut them shorter in a moment. But like I said, I don't want the butt of the cabbage at all. I don't find it appetizing, and it doesn't cook well in the soup. So throughout this process, I'm just kind of trimming around the stem of the cabbage, just getting as much of the leafy part as I can. And then once I'm done, I'm going to go ahead and separate it a little bit by hand and fluff it up. So moving on to the cooking process, what I'm going to do is cook off most of the sausage. I did end up cooking off a little bit more than I needed, so my soup gets a little overloaded later on. But just cook it most of the way through. It's going to get boiled later, so it doesn't have to be too perfect.
Cowboys need protein!
Okay, so now that my sausage is most of the way cooked, I'm just going to pull it off the heat, set it to the side, and move on. So I've got my potatoes all loaded in, and I'm pouring in about 4 cups of broth mixed with that chicken bouillon powder I had from earlier. the goal is to have your potatoes just barely covered. So bring it to a simmer, let them cook. Here is about the consistency that you want them to be when you pull them off. And then go ahead and drain and get back on the heat. And now I'm gonna go in with milk about to the same level as the broth. So get the potatoes mostly, if not fully covered. Just depends on how soupy you want how brothy you want your soup to be. Okay, so I've brought the soup back up to a simmer. Now, I am really careful when it comes to over boiling my milk because it's a pain in the ass to get off the stove top because it's glass. But now since it's at a low simmer, I'm gonna go ahead and add in all my cabbage and sausage to cook down the cabbage and make sure the sausage is fully cooked through. And just let that moisture just cook all that stuff down. Okay, so now that everything is good and cooked, the cabbage is the texture I want, I'm going to go in with seasoning. So here I've got garlic powder. I did end up having to add a little bit more of that later on. I've got paprika. I'm just measuring all of the stuff with my eyes. When it comes to home cooking, I am not taking the time to weigh out or measure seasonings. That was my oregano. I did go in with a bit more oregano than parsley because I kind of used the parsley just as color for the soup, just to bring some vibrancy in. And I'm just gonna let all of that stew together for a moment and come back with the cornstarch in a bit. Okay, so here I am with the cornstarch. I have maybe about half a cup of liquid just right back into what I had the broth in because I'm not dirtying another dish, with maybe about 2 tablespoons of cornstarch in there. I only ended up using about half of it because as soon as I added it, the broth immediately thickened way more than I thought it was going to for how much liquid I had in there. But I think the fillings kind of just absorbed some of the moisture a bit more than I was expecting, so I didn't need as much as I thought I did. Okay, so here I am going in with my first taste test of the soup. Specifically with soups, I like to add my herbs and spices and let those simmer a bit before I go in with my salt and pepper, because I find that those things are just to bring out and accentuate flavors. So if the soup by itself has a good strong base, then all the salt is going to do is make it better. I do end up deciding that it's going to need more garlic powder at this point, is where I have come to that conclusion after a second taste test after this. Here I am adding in that garlic powder. I'd say it was about half as much as I added the first time. It just needed a bit more.
Boom! Boom, boom, boom!
Yes. What are you doing?
I'm making dinner for you.
How do I take a picture?
I think you're video.
You can take a video.
Oh
right
yeah,
now.
perfect.
How do I take a picture? I don't want to take a video.
You don't want to take a video? You done?
Like that.
My soup is all done. I had to take a little break to get a Diet Mountain Dew from Quick Trip. Cowboys need their fuel. Anywho, it's time for the big reveal. So, I'm going to be completely honest. This is just my dinner tonight because I was not about to make a whole thing like perfected for this YouTube video. So I did end up with a bit more like filling in the soup than I guess I usually would have. Especially a bit too much meat, but I kind of knew that was going to be the case as I was looking at it in the van. But I chose to continue on anyways. So I've got my bowl. We're gonna finish with some parsley. Ignore this for a second. Had to take a quick picture. Let's give it a try. Phenomenal. This shit is bomb. It's nice and creamy. The Italian sausage is actually kind of a nice touch. I really like it instead of the whole sausage that I usually put in it. Cabbage is fire as usual. The potatoes are nice and tender, but not overcooked to the point where they just become like mush in your mouth. They still have some firmness to it. To be honest, I think I would have pulled them off of the boiling water a bit sooner than I did. I think they could have stood to spend some more time in the milk instead of just the broth cooking, but I don't like cooking in the milk itself. I tried that before and it did not end well because milk boiled over on this goddamn stovetop is akin to hell to get it off. But no, I really like this soup. It is still one of my favorites to this day. Cabbage is always a win. It's phenomenal if you want to do it like a loaded potato soup style where you take out the cabbage and sausage and finish it with sour cream, cheese, bacon, kind of like your more traditional potato soup. Now I'm gonna eat this for dinner with some toast, I think. That's my dinner, and this is my video.